Hey everyone, it's Peter from Daydream Nation, and I've got Bicyclelegs back to the channel. How are you,
Hey.
mate?
Good, good. Especially after last night.
Well, both Bicyclelegs and myself have had the pleasure of seeing Devo. I saw Devo at the ICC Theatre in Sydney on Sunday night, and Bicyclelegs, you saw them in Brisbane last
Yes,
night.
at
So
the
I
QPAC Concert Hall.
at the QPAC Concert Hall. So I thought it'd be a bit of a gas if we could compare notes, do a little bit of a Devo live review. Why don't we get started? I'll talk about some of the basics and then we'll just get right into it. I've actually compared the song with, sets because nothing is a secret these days. As soon as a band has a live show, you can just look it up on the web and you see what they played and what album these songs come from and how long they played. And it just seems that Devo played exactly the same show and it was around about the same time. So it was about 17 songs and it clocked in at 1 hour, 21 minutes. Now, you pre-warned me that Devo were very economical in their shows around about the hour. So I was quite chuffed, that they play for 1 hour and 21.
Yeah. Well, they always have done sort of between hour and a half sets. There's not a lot, as you would have noticed, there's not a lot of banter on stage. They just, they play the songs. There's maybe occasionally a little one-liner from Jerry here and there. But yeah, I mean, and also they always play the same set list because they've got a film for every song. So, they can't really sort of be switching songs out and all that sort of thing. So,
Okay, well, I guess I'll start off with the Sonics, my impressions. So I'm a first time Devo concert goer, and you've seen them 5 times?
this was my fourth.
Fourth, four,
Yeah.
4 times. I think what was really surprising to me was how hard hitting they are. So the concert actually started with a couple of songs which was very much into their synth pop era. Don't Shoot I'm a Man, Peekaboo. It was only really until the I think Girl You Want where they came out with their guitars and they did a long stretch of a number of songs where it was very punky, it was very spiky, a little bit shaggy, not sort of perfect, but I liked it. And then towards the end, they had a bit of a reprise with some of the songs that you would expect them to play, some of the hits like Gates of Steel, Freedom of Choice, and finishing up with Beautiful World. So to me, in a summary, I think it was a show that kind of satisfied everybody. There was something for everybody. Is that how you would see it?
It's funny you should choose that particular phrase, considering that was the title of their last album. But yeah, look, they've always been like that. When I've seen them, like I first saw them in 1997, and they played at the Livid Festival here in Brisbane. And yeah, they've always had that. They've always been a really energetic live band. I mean, these days they don't move around on stage quite as much because they're in their 70s now. They can't do the sort of pogoing around quite as much as they used to, but they still have their little moves and that sort of thing. But yeah, sonically, they've always been a very energetic live band. They've always been a bit more, hard hitting, I think, live than they are on their records. And I think you can hear that too when you hear, like we did a show not that long ago on the Devo Live EP. And those versions on that album are definitely sort of more punky and hard edged than the versions that are on the Freedom of Choice album. So, I think that's always been the way with them, that they're a bit more sort of high energy in concert, whereas they're a
Yeah,
little more perfectionist in the studio.
absolutely. And, dare I say, a little bit loose. And when I said the word shaggy, There are a couple of, sort of miscues, a couple of bum notes here and there, and I liked it. I didn't mind it at all. I guess those first couple of songs, which were very like Peekaboo, was very much like sounds on the record. No traditional bass. There was like a synthesizer bass, and a friend of mine sort of said, "Oh, he was a bit worried that the whole show was going to sound like that." But when Girl You Want came on and they came out with the guitars, it went into that sort of really kind of punky new wave sort of sound.
Well, yeah, I mean, their set list, and like even though they've played different set lists over the last sort of 40 years, they've often done this sort of thing where they'll play the more recent material first and then sort of go back in time as they go along in the set. And that kind of makes sense because like on that first 7 songs that they played, everything was sort of the newer stuff, or it was from the Freedom of Choice album. And that was, that's when Jerry's playing the synth bass. And then the second set's when he comes out and plays bass guitar instead. And yeah, I mean, they've kind of done it that way for a long time. So yeah, but I mean, I'm still happy to hear some of that. Like, I'm still glad they're playing Don't Shoot I'm a Man because I think it's a great set opener.
Yeah, well, we were talking, so a lot of my friends, we were congregating and having a few beers before the show and just contemplating what sort of songs they would play in the song list. I just put my hand up and said, look, I'd be happy to hear the Devo live EP in full. And I got most of it, which was really good. And a couple of my mates were saying, whoa, I wonder if they play Mongoloid, Jocko Homo, tick, tick, tick. So
Yeah.
I just think it was a show. Maybe it's a cliche that there was something for everybody. I don't think there were too many. I mean, I could be a completist. There's a couple of other songs I could have asked for. But I think it was a really, really good song list because it really covered the discography and picked the hits, but it had enough little kind of semi-deep cuts to keep the purists like yourself, Bicyclelegs, happy and ticking over. My question to you, did you see a lot of variation between this show and the last tour and the tour before that, or was it kind of more of the same?
Well, I mean, the set list, the last time I saw them was 2012, so it was 11 years ago. They played A Day on the Green. And the set list was similar, but not the same. There was only one song from the latest album, Something for Everybody, in this set list. I think there were 3 in that set list because the album had only been out for a couple of years then. They didn't play Planet Earth back in 2012, so I was really happy to hear them play that one. But I mean, all the songs in the second set, your Satisfaction, Secret Agent Man, Uncontrollable Urge, Mongoloid, Jocko Homo, Smart Patrol, Gates of Steel, they have played those at every show for the last 40 years because they know that those are the crowd favorites. So they know they kind of have to play those songs.
So that's kind of locked in, and then they can put other songs around that. So if they're working a song list, that middle section is just locked in and just work around it.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Visually, it was really, really interesting. I found it exciting on the eyes. I love that montage at the start. That really pumped up the audience. I love the little comedy film clips. I mean, this is a very subversive band. This is a band that's got a great sense of humor. What did you think of the visual side of it? Just the backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, Devo have always been known for their films, right from the very beginning. I mean, one of the first things that ever got Devo noticed before they even had a record deal was that they made this art school film called The Beginning Was the End. And it had like film clips before film clips were really a thing. So, that's always been part of their oeuvre. The opening film as a not as much of a hardcore Devo fan, you may not know that character, but he's a guy called Rod Reuter, and he's been playing their sort of being the representative of the management side of the music business for since the late 70s. The first half of that film was something that they filmed in the late 70s, and then the second half, something they did just in the last couple of years. And yeah, absolutely wonderful. Always loved it when Rod the Man Reuter gets a bit of a showing at a Devo show. The second film was really cool too, sort of like a Carl Sagan piss take, sort of like, you are here, the insignificance of the universe, and you're here in this place and time with Devo and all that sort of thing. It was very humorous. I loved it. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, they've always been known for that in their shows. Got some newer films, which is nice. So was happy to see that.
So one thing I was looking at was the drummer, and that's Jeff Friedel. Very, very solid. It's a very sort of a lot of the Devo songs are very tricky rhythmically, and he was just rock solid all the way through. What's your views on Jeff?
Yeah, he's a great drummer. He played when I saw him in 2012 as well. And he sort of comes in when Josh Freese isn't available. And obviously Josh Freese isn't available anymore because he's joined the Foo Fighters now. But yeah, he's played with them for a while. And yeah, I mean, a lot of those drum patterns were originally come up with by their late great Devo drummer, Alan Myers, who they used to refer to as the human metronome. And they are tricky patterns, things like the Satisfaction drum beat and things like that. They're really tricky. They're influenced by sort of krautrock, those sort of drum beats and that sort of thing.
Freedom of choice. That's a really tricky beat.
Mm.
And just metronomic. And look, I'm glad you pointed that out because as I said, I'm not familiar with the current the touring band, and I thought it was
instead of Jeff Friedel.
Yeah, absolutely. But so what were the standout songs for you? What was highlights for you?
I mean, look, as I said, I was happy they started with "Don't Shoot I'm a Man." I'm glad they're still playing at least something from the "Something for Everybody" album because I adore that album. It's always great when they play "Peekaboo." That's one of my personal favorites. I was really happy to hear them play "Planet Earth" because I have never heard them play that one before. That wasn't in the set lists any of the other times I've seen them. So that was great. It's always great when they play, Jocko Homo and Smart Patrol Mr. DNA. That's always, those two songs for me are always the highlight of any Devo performance. That's why they play them at every show. And it's always nice to see Boogie Boy at the end of the show doing Beautiful World.
Yeah. Can you explain that? That was probably I didn't quite get that. I would have preferred that was played a bit straighter. I don't know if I like the vocals of that one. And I know it's Mark coming out as a character. Maybe you can tell the folk a little bit about this.
Well, Boogie Boy is the infantile spirit of de-evolution. He was created by Mark when he found that baby mask. And he immediately found the voice that he used to speak and sing in Boogie Boy. Boogie Boy's kind of the mascot for Devo, as it were. He used to do other songs earlier in their appearances. There was a song they used to play called "The Words Get Stuck in My Throat," which Boogie Boy used to sing, but now he does Beautiful World. Yeah, it's a deep Devo thing, I think. But yeah, I mean, Boogie Boy's kind of like Mark, as you probably noticed, doesn't speak to the crowd during the show. Any of the talking is done by Jerry. Pretty much the only thing Mark said is at the end of the sort of main set, he lets out a huge good night. But I think that's his way of communicating with the audience is through the character of Boogie Boy. And Boogie Boy's supposed to be this sort of wide-eyed, innocent kind of character, sort of getting away from the, corruption that de-evolution talks about and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think that's what the Boogie Boy thing's all about. And, most hardcore Devo fans, it wouldn't be a Devo show without seeing Boogie Boy at some stage.
Absolutely. So the actual audience was kind of a cross section. There are a lot of hardcore fans in Sydney. I saw a lot of Devo t-shirts going back to the 80s. A lot of people were wearing the hats. Yeah, I just think that Australia has always taken this band to their hearts. And in the early 80s, there was a little bit of Devo mania. So yeah. Was that the same in Brisbane? You had a bit of a cross-sectional audience?
Yeah, it was nice to see some younger folks in the audience. I mean, my son was obviously there with me because I brought him up on Devo music. But there, he wasn't the only youngster there, which was nice to see. Yeah, there were some more casual fans there as well as the obvious hardcore ones. I'm sure you've seen the photo of me in my yellow outfit. Yeah, it was definitely a mixed audience, which was really cool. But the other thing I think is, Devo, as you said, very much have been taken to heart by Australia. This is pretty much here in New Zealand. It's pretty much the only countries where Devo have had more than one top 40 hit. Everywhere else in the world, it's Whip It and that's it.
Or the UK where Satisfaction went top 10.
Yeah. But, everywhere else, everywhere else, that's pretty much it. But here, Beautiful World was a hit. Peekaboo was a hit. Here to Go was a hit. So, they've always had a special relationship with the Australian audience, which I've always appreciated.
Yeah. That just reminds me, that's a song I wouldn't have minded hearing, Here to Go.
Mm.
That was a bit of a club staple, just going night clubbing, and that got played a lot. So I was actually surprised they didn't play that song. But getting back to where Devo sit, they were in the nomination for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I saw a lot of critics and YouTube folk just going through the checklist. And when they came to Devo, they go, one hit wonder. They really only had one hit. I think they sort of don't recognize the significance of Devo, because Devo have influenced a lot of bands, like even Australia's Regurgitator. I could put a dotted line to Devo, just with subversive humour, social commentary. I think that's what's lacking in a lot of music. And I'm starting to sound like a cranky old band, but it's like Frank Zappa said, does humour belong in music? And shit, yeah, it does. And I think Devo had the perfect blend of humour and social commentary. And you don't sort of hear that. You don't sort of get that sort of type of music. What do you think about that?
But yeah, I think the other thing about Devo musically is that they're very influential. That mixture of sort of punkish guitars with synthesizers and those sort of German kind of beats, those sort of krautrock kinds of beats. They're very influential, not just on a band like Regurgitator, but a whole bunch of bands. And I think that, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame definitely needs to, and it does sometimes, recognize bands that aren't just million-selling behemoths. They're also bands that are really influential. I mean, you want to talk about one-hit wonders. Technically, in the US, Jimi Hendrix is a one-hit wonder. He only ever had one top 40 hit, and that was All Along the Watchtower. So...
I just think it's a sliding ruler, isn't it? Just whoever's in the board, they sort of just adjust it. You are correct. But look, I think Devo, are very, very influential, and you've got to look at it on a worldwide basis. But there are a lot of their contemporaries. There just seemed to be something that was happening in the new wave genre where there was a lot of humour and a lot of, like, another band I would cite that was in that sort of ballpark was the Tubes.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. Um, even you look at bands like Cheap Trick, which were on the periphery of new age. There was a lot of sort of humor.
Mm.
I don't know. Just it just seems like a lot of bands have lost that sense of humor, and this is one band that sort of continued. Um, do you think that like Devo in the mid to later 80s, they were you used to hear a lot of their songs on soundtracks. They were kind of trying to be commercial and follow and get that extra hit. Do you think that may have tarnished their legacy a little bit? You know, um, their songs are appearing on the soundtrack, say, for Dr. Detroit and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, a band like Oingo Boingo was doing that sort of thing all the time too, talking about new wave bands that had great senses of humor, by the way.
Exactly. That's another one.
Oingo Boingo were doing a lot of soundtrack stuff too at the time, and it doesn't seem to have hurt their reputation. Although, they were never on the same league as Devo. They never had a big breakout hit the way Devo did.
What was their what would have been their biggest hit?
Well, I mean, in the US, probably something like Weird Science, but I mean, here I first knew Oingo Boingo from the song "Stay," which got played on the radio all the time here in Australia.
That did trouble the charts. I think that was in the lower reaches of the top 40. And obviously, a lot of people know Danny Elfman for being the soundtrack composer extraordinaire.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. That's another one you'd put in that pool.
But yeah,
new wave bands with humor.
I don't think it hurt, Devo's reputation all that much. I don't think Devo had a reputation much to begin with. It's really only in the last 10, 15 years that people have started to take this band seriously.
And then they're pulling up stumps. It's the 50th year, so.
Well, you see, that's the thing. The promoters are saying this is the farewell tour, but if you ask Devo, they say they're going to be around for another 50 years. So we'll see. I think it's a bit of a marketing gimmick, this farewell tour thing. I think we'll see more from Devo.
If they were going to do the tired cliche Kiss route and finish up somewhere, where would the logical final concert be in Devo world?
It'd have to be in their hometown, I think, or Akron or Cleveland or somewhere like that in Ohio, somewhere near the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think that would be very, very cool. Mark Mothersbaugh has actually said that if they don't get admitted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, apparently there's a law in Ohio that you can, if you own a block of land, you can get buried in it. And so Devo are going to buy a block of land right near the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and get buried in it just so that they're adjacent to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I think it's a lot of work. I think it's a lot of work for a piss weak organisation, to be quite frank.
Yes.
But I get the humour. So just casting my eyes up and down on the set list, were there any songs that you kind of were hoping would have made it and didn't? Being a deep cut guy,
I and my son would both have loved to have seen a couple more songs from the New Traditionalists album, something like Jerkin' Back and Forth, which they did used to play in concert quite a bit. That would have been wonderful. But yeah, I mean, I knew what I was getting when I was coming into this. I knew that their set list doesn't change an awful lot. So I knew I wasn't going to get any of those really sort of hoped for songs. I would have loved to have heard a song called Big Mess, which is from the Oh No It's Devo album, but I'm pretty sure they haven't played that since the Oh No It's Devo tour. So I wasn't getting my hopes up that they were going to play that. But yeah.
I think for me, just to be a completist, I wouldn't have minded hearing Be Stiff and maybe the old Chestnut Working in a Coal Mine. That would have been a bit of fun. Which was a hit in Australia, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, top 20, I believe.
Yeah, I think that might have been their last genuine top 20 hit in Australia. So
yeah, I
think so. Anyway, any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
I mean, it's just as I said, this is my fourth Devo show. They never disappoint, as far as I'm concerned. It was a special show for me because I got to take my son this time. because last time they toured, he was only, I think, 10 years old or something like that. He was a bit young to be going to a big, loud rock show. So it was just absolutely wonderful to finally take him to a show. He had the time of his life, which was wonderful. So if you get the chance, anybody in the audience there, if you get the chance to go and see Devo, as Molly Meldrum would say, do yourself a favor and go. You won't be disappointed.
Look, I agree with everything that Daniel said. I think it was one of my favorite gigs of the year. It was just so much fun. And it was, I'll say it again, it was something for everybody. If you love synth pop, if you love new wave, you love something a little bit spiky, loose, ragged, shaggy, there was a bit of a, there was something there for you as well. But it was never dull and always entertaining. And, I'd rather have 1 hour and 21 minutes of something that just whizzes past and is quite entertaining than 3 hours of boredom. So there you go.
Yep.
Bicyclelegs, as always, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure.
Check out his channel. Always something coming on the channel.
Yeah. In fact, hopefully I will have a couple of clips coming up from the Devo show coming up on my channel in the next couple of days. So
Please
look out for those.
Give it a like and have a sub on that one. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Click the bell. Plenty of content. Always lots of stuff happening, all different types of genres. But one thing's for sure, you'll see me and Daniel talking about something rock very soon. See you later.